Hey, this is Matt once again. What about the video is another paid request, this time for JPerez. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, topics, reactions, commentaries, what have you, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. And this is for the 1984 film, Silent Madness. Now, before I get into the film, a little bit of how I found this movie. Just funny, JPerez mentioned it. I'm like, oh, I know that film. You do? Yeah. A while ago, this is maybe 3 years ago. Shows how fast time goes. I wanted to do a series of videos where I reviewed every 80s horror film. Which is funny, I know there's a few people on YouTube that have done that, so congrats to them. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't hack it. But then I was like, okay, well, what 80s horror film looks interesting that I haven't seen yet? I was going through year and year, and I saw this cover. I'm like, okay, it's a slasher film. I'm intrigued by 80s slasher films. I don't love every single one of them, but I like My Bloody Valentine, a good chunk of the Friday the 13th films. If you call Elm Street slasher films, I like a good chunk of those. April Fool's Day, among others. So I'm like, let me give this a look. At the time, it was only on VHS. It had not had a DVD in the US. Maybe it had a DVD overseas. I can't remember. And when I first saw it, I noticed there were some issues because it looked like some bits were edited and cut out. And that was the case. Like, there were some, like, violent bits and some weird moments cut out. Like, the jump ahead, for those who've seen the film, if not, you don't be confused. I'll explain it later. But for those who've seen it, there's a bit where, I'll use it as an example. Our lead character is trapped in this dut, and the villain is kind of lowering this blade thing and kind of doing this as he's lowering down, like getting closer and closer, ready to cut her up. A good chunk of that is cut out, which I don't know why. It's like these weird random, like the violent bits were edited, and then these weird random bits were edited. I'm like, wait a minute, there's something going on here. And then I looked up some info, and oh well, the uncut version, which I don't know why it was cut to begin with, was like on some VHS overseas or something. So it might not have been on DVD. It might, like, so I remember taking a while to try to find that, ultimately doing it and liking it. And that's why I was so glad that Vendor Syndrome released this, because it looked good on Blu-ray. And I'll get more, but let me discuss the release. He's out now. The terror has just begun. You got the theatrical poster. You also have another cover on the flip side. You have 3D glasses, because this was a 3D movie, which has also made me a bit intrigued in watching the film. It's got a lot of features. I mean, you can watch in 3D, digital 3D, which requires a 3D TV, anaglyph 3D that works on all TVs, and regular flat 2D. You have a commentary with the director, moderated by Michael Gingold. You have a commentary track with Hysteria Continues. You have a 45-minute making of. Sadly, no interviews with Belinda Montgomery, which I would love to have seen that, but I guess she just wasn't interested. Locations featurette. So a lot of features. And again, it was just nice to see the full version cleaned up on Blu-ray. And this is one of my favorite Vendor Syndrome releases. So I also like the slipcover. Looks nice. Now the film itself, it's a 1984 slasher film that did get released in 3D. Now I don't know if there's anybody out there who ever did see this in the theater in 3D. If so, love to hear from them. But It's a film that some people may go, well, what's the big deal? I liked this film quite a bit because while it does seem typical in a lot of aspects, where you have the sorority girls and you have the maniac that, I mean, he's not Jason Voorhees, he's not Michael Myers, he's, you know, just crazy guy. There's a lot of nice quirky moments in it and little details here and there that made the film a little bit more endearing. The store itself is pretty quirky and weird, but I kind of liked it. The acting I thought was pretty good, especially the lead, Belinda Montgomery. I thought she did a really wonderful job. She's pretty much a female Dr. Loomis. You know, Loomis, Michael Myers, Halloween. She's pretty much a female version of that. And I thought she was a very strong actress. I think she was the mom in Duty Hauser, MD. And the plot I thought was kind of interesting, where this Dr. Kruger, I'm like, of course, Kruger. I'm like, is this what he did before Nightmare on Elm Street? He got fired for being a doctor, then he became a custodian, janitor, and then went more crazy because of the events of this film, and then became Freddy Krueger. Dr. Kruger does a release program to save money at the hospital, and you kind of find out they released the wrong man. It's supposed to be John Howard, but they released Howard John, who is this mental psychopath, nutcase. And something about that I just liked, because with how messed up corporations and institutions and all sorts of stuff with paperwork and protocol, I could buy this happening because of the incompetence of these institutions. And also it created like a bit more of a subplot that you don't find in a lot of slashers. Usually slashers are pretty cut and dry. But not only do you have this killer loose, but then you also have this institution wanting to cover up their misdeeds and their screw-ups to a point that they send these two attendants, these two orderlies, to go capture and get rid of this guy, as well as possibly get rid of Belinda Montgomery's character, who's a doctor, because she knows the truth and she wants to let people know what's going on and their screw-ups. Save you a bit more for our lead character or characters to deal with. Like, she has to deal with this maniac as well as these two orderlies. So it kept the film a bit more interesting, even when something like a death scene wasn't happening on screen. Now, it's not the goriest movie. Far, far from it. There's little bits here and there, but while it lacks in gore, I thought the kills were at least a bit more creative, a bit more different compared to usual stuff. I would like to have seen more gore, to be fair. That would have been nice to see. Would have been a nice addition. But it is what it is. Like I said, throughout the film, there's all these little moments that stuck out to me that made it either I chuckled or I was amused by or I enjoyed. And how do I go on that without spoiling it? Well, I guess I gotta spoil. What I mean by that is, like, this couple in a van gets attacked. I think one of them is someone from the first Sleeper Camp movie. I think the guy in there. But our villain is beating the hell out of the van with his hammer. It even hits the guy's hand. And you see it impact the hand and leave like a red welt. So I thought that was a nice little detail. And there's a bit where the villain throws like an axe. He throws this. And it turns to, because it's doing a 3D, he's doing it for the 3D effect. It turns from the axe to like a cartoon axe for a little few seconds. And I thought that was kind of fun and amusing. Unintentionally, but I actually kind of liked that detail. I know it was done for the 3D effect, but something about that I really enjoyed, and because it's almost like goes to a Matrix slow motion, because it's like a cartoon. Well, maybe not as much slow motion, but at least a little bit. I just to let people know, to have it stay there for a few seconds for the 3D. Oh shit! And it's fun to watch this at home in 3D. I mean, I would just watch it 2D, but 3D. I mean, at home in 3D, it's barely going to be like a little bit. It won't be in your face, but you see a little bit off the TV screen, and that's a fun piece of gimmick to watch at home. So, again, it's not a 3D that will come to your face, but you try to see it. Like here's a TV screen, you see it far apart. Like it's nice that they didn't just ignore that. They did put that on the Blu-ray, so I do appreciate that. Other death scenes. Do I want to spoil that? Like I said, some of the death scenes, like I said, they're not as gory, but they're a bit more creative, like I said. And the acting, like Belinda Montgomery, I thought she was a lady that cared about what was going on, was a bit smarter than a usual character in these type of movies. Easy to root for, pretty natural, and wanting to get to the bottom of this. A strong female lead. Because, some people say that's only happened the past 10 years. No, this is 1984, and Belinda Montgomery is a strong female lead. I also like Viveca Lindfors. She's a much older actress from back in the day. She plays the house mother, the sorority, Mrs. Collins. David Greenan as Mark, the newspaper reporter, who he has some chemistry with Belinda Montgomery, and I thought that worked out well. I thought both of them were actually pretty good actors in it. They had some nice chemistry with each other, so it didn't make it boring, and it didn't go too overboard with the love story. It's enough there to make me care a bit, but the movie still goes on in its path. And I said little details, like one person puts a Coca-Cola. Speaking of which, it's not cherry Coke, but they put a regular Coca-Cola into a cereal bowl. So they're eating cereal not with milk, but with Coca-Cola. Or there's a death scene that happens, and right before it, the person is playing a Dragon's Lair arcade game. And as her character dies, she dies as well. Or you have this sheriff, and I've seen this actor before, Sidney Lassick. I've seen him before in a few others. And definitely an interesting choice for a sheriff. He has certain lines of dialogue like, well, first off, he has beer at his drawer. Like, he opens the drawer, just spits out a beer. Or he's talking to the reporter going, just because a bra is good looking doesn't mean we all gotta think about our dicks. I mean, he doesn't... Ultimately, he becomes a useless character. But at the same time, it's more for our heroes to deal with on their own. Now, the sorority girls, I mean, they're there. If you were to ask me to list two things about each of them, I couldn't do it. I mean, I could barely remember their names. I don't think they were bad acting-wise. It's just there's nothing to their characters. They're just... cannon fodder. They're just complete cannon fodder. And I also like the location, but I do find it funny that this sorority house has the most pipes I've ever seen any sorority house. Like, there's factories with less pipes in this place. Like, there's like a gargantuan whirlpool of pipes. They're just pipes everywhere. I'm like, I forget where they do mention on the documentary where they shot it. I forget where it was though, but I liked it. It creates a nice location, makes it feel a bit different. It's just I've never seen a sorority house with basements and pipes like this. I mean, Freddy Krueger would, Freddy Krueger, this would be like his dream house, his dream place to live. Like the ultimate boiler room. So again, that's funny, but at the same time, I like the way it looks. Like all these little additions with the strong acting from Belinda Montgomery and some of the other decent acting and more spoilers like the kills. Like one person gets their head in a vice and he's twisting. You see a little bit of blood come out of their head. One's ready to get some steam in the face. You don't see a lot of it. You just see the aftermath later. There's one of the orderlies trying to assault Belinda Montgomery. And the other guys like try to find a switch, and he finds a switch, and he accidentally kills his buddy, which I thought was weird. That it was an accident. Like you would think, like the killer would have like knocked him out, hit it, in order to purposely kill the guy. I think that would have made at least a little bit more sense. But the fact the guy's like, do 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 do, guys ask for the lights. I guess this one. Zzz, I'm like, he doesn't even scream because it went into his brain. I like the effect, drill into the head, but the fact that it was done in acid was kind of like, what? But I guess didn't see it coming. I even like the bit where the killer has like a crowbar type of thing and stabs the guy. And when he pulls out the nice detail, when he pulls out the thing had connected to a pipe, so to sell the illusion that this is a dangerous weapon, it now starts leaking water. So in your mind, you're like, okay, well, yeah, that went through him, and it's real because like little details like that really help. I like the chase scene at the end throughout the pipes of doom. Some decent color schemes, like there's a bit where it's all red, and at one bit there's a little bit of green. And I thought the chase scene was pretty fun, where she's finding the dead bodies, he's pushing them back, he's getting fried. She's going through the air ducts, and he's trying to stab and impale her. She's trying to get the sting down, but she's trapped, and he's lowering this thing down with all these blades and like whipping them around to try to shred her. I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. It's cool because it felt like a lot of adversity for her character to overcome, and it didn't feel typical like I had seen this 10 times in other films. Even the stabbing through the ducts, this was done before Halloween 5, and I like this film a lot more than Halloween 5. Oh, there's a flashback done in black and white that shows a little bit of the killer's backstory, where he was being spanked and this happened. Of course, you find out later that's not exactly how it happened. It wasn't just there's a bit of a twist to it at the end. But you get a nail gun murder spree, nail gun to the head and such, but not too bad. You do get some bits of nudity. You get one near the beginning, some nice oranges. And in the flashback, you get some nudity as well. So he's got some nudity, he's got some kills. Like I said, it's not the most gory movie. Probably that drill bit's the goriest part. Yeah, there's silly things in it. There's the her trying to fight off the orderlies, and then the killer comes in, and then the orderlies are fighting the killer. Which I like that. That's what I mean. I like that kind of. God, what more does this lady have to deal with? Like the orderlies are trying to either kill her or knock her out, and they also want the villain. And then the villain comes in, and then the bad guys are fighting the villain. And like I said, that made it a bit different, a bit off the beaten path for a slasher film. But like she runs and like she trips over this suitcase and falls down the stairs. I'm like, come on. Like you couldn't see that suitcase? Like it couldn't be like she's fighting and she just thrown down or something. Or she gets grabbed and one's like grabbing the other and then she just thrown back. I mean, the fact she runs, trips over the suit, I'm like, come on. The way it ends is kind of weird. This is super spoilers. She stabs the. She's chased more and more by the killer. The reporter cool guy. I mean, even when these orderlies tied him with his hands behind his back, he still had the guts to come in with a shotgun, and he's trying to aim it, but his hands are tied behind his back, so he misses. And the lady grabs a piece of glass, piece of mirror, a shard, and stabs the killer in the neck. And he found out that the house mother is the mother of this guy. And I'm glad it doesn't end on a sequel bait ending, doesn't end on a downbeat ending, doesn't end on a what the hell ending. What I meant by what I was saying is that, like I said, our two stars still have some nice chemistry with each other. They have some good back and forth. The guy's like, well, I'm going to stay here for the story. Oh, the hell I will, because he's going to go with Belinda Montgomery, which I don't blame him. But then, like, as soon as they start going, it fades out. In the middle of them, like, they're ready to drive off, and then it fades to the credits. It seems a bit abrupt. It felt like this would be a movie that would have, like, a wide shot of maybe them driving away in the car, or, like, they take off in the car, and the camera turns, and you see the car going off in the distance, or... So I don't know if someone was snipped out at the end credits, or before the end credits, and they had to do like a fade. Because I don't think there's another scene in the movie that has a fade. So that's what I mean, like, fade... It makes me assume that there was something else after the fact. Like, was there more dialogue? Was there more this and that? Was there an extra scene? I don't know. And then they cut it out. And instead of a hard cut, they just go a little fade into the end. It felt a bit weird. I don't know if there's... I don't remember them saying anything on the making of, so... But if I ever talked to these folks, that'd be something I'd ask. But yeah, the 3D aspect is fun. But it's not as in your face as Friday the 13th Part 3. I mean, there are moments where they do something, they're only doing it because of the 3D. But I say it doesn't feel as in your face as in doing it all the time like Friday the 13th Part 3 did. But yeah, I think this is a pretty decent slasher film. I actually like this quite a bit. I would put this in my top 10 of slasher films. Just like I said, I thought the acting, especially by the leads, were well above the norm for these kind of movies. I thought the kills at least were at least a bit more different. The quirkiness of like the store, and I said the Coca-Cola and cereal, like all these little eccentric, quirky things add up to make it stand out from the pack. And like I said, Belinda Montgomery really helped me like the film and care about what happened, care about her safety, and I thought that was definitely a strong point in this. Like I said, the whole subplot with the orderlies sent in that covered up the hospital's mistakes, I actually liked that subplot. Because usually we're just hanging out, waiting for the killer to come about. Oh, then the killer kills 1, 2, 3, and then find out at the end. Here, there's a little bit more to that because of that subplot. And overall, yeah, Silent Madness I did enjoy. And yeah, I'm glad that we got a Blu-ray. So, with that said, thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.